So I did grow up being an altar boy, going to church every Sunday. I learned about sex through friends. I went back for my master's in 2021. If we are going to start playing with others, then I would rather get on PrEP. Bear Pride is kind of like Pride, but for fat guys. I like men who take care of their feet. Seeing my husband get pleasure from someone else that's not me. We are open. We have started dating someone. I already knew how many men were on the down low. I've been with males, I've been with females, and I've been with trans individuals. People should have an open mind when it comes to sex.
We're back for Season 8 of the Confessions podcast, and this time, it's the PrEP edition. HIV cases may be dropping overall, but not for the Latino community in the United States. Even though more people know about PrEP, too many are still missing out on this game-changing protection. This season isn't just about PrEP. It's about sex, sexuality, intimacy, and desire. We're talking sex, pleasure, identity, and everything in between, from kinks and fetishes to how PrEP fits into real people's lives. This is where the stories get raw, honest, and unapologetically hot. Whether you're curious, cautious, or already living your PrEP life, this season is for you. Turn up the volume, lean in close. Welcome to Confessions, the PrEP edition.
My name is Charlie, my age 43. So I'm a male, he, him, his. I consider myself pansexual, very fluid. I don't like to put myself in a box. And so I think for me, my sexuality has been very fluid for a while. For me, it's if you're cute, you're cute. And if we get along great. And that's how I've lived my life. So I was born and raised in East LA, very traditional Catholic family. I'm the only male in my family. There's only two of us. My sister and I, she is 9 years older than me. So I think I grew up in a very conservative, strict household. My dad was a typical Mexican machista. He couldn't never see me cry, and if he did, it was just suck it up. So I did grow up very, being an altar boy, going to church every Sunday. I didn't learn about sex or anything through my parents. I learned it through friends and school. My parents were great. They were great. I can't say that they weren't there for us. They were, for sure, even my dad. But my dad wasn't, I think, emotionally invested in us. Or not that he didn't know how. He didn't grow up like that with his father. My dad, for me, was involved in my life because I was in sports. And so that was his way of connecting with me. He would take me to all my games. He would watch all my games. But as far as emotional, he never asked how you're doing. But I did grow up very spoiled. I am the youngest. My parents pretty much let me do whatever I wanted, but I felt like my parents were very strict to some degree. So I think I learned about sex through friends, but also when I was very young, I did have a neighbor. We're all the same age, there's three of us, and I remember playing in his garage and, being kids. We must have been maybe, 9, 10. We found a box of porn, a VHS. That belonged to his dad. Now, of course, when we found the box, we didn't know what it was. And being the curious kids that we were, we put it on. It was a bunch of porn. So that was the first time that I really experienced porn was, or sex. And then me and my friends were like, what do we do with all this? At that time, we were scared, but then it's we found a lottery. We had all these 50 VHSs, and we distributed them among the three of us. And so that's how I learned about sex, really. Just watching it with my friends, not really knowing what to do, if we got excited. At this point, there was no concept of gay or straight. It was just being kids, watching porn together, just experimenting there. There was some arousal, but I think watching something that we knew was bad for us at that point. There was no sexual arousal between the three of us. It was just us watching porn. And then, of course, at that time, now that I think about it, no one in porn looked like us. I'm talking about, it was mostly white males. Our penises looked different. We're like, wait, they don't have a hoodie like us, And so I grew up thinking, what's wrong with this? We're all uncut. No one in these videos are. They don't look like us. That was a little bit of, I felt ashamed for a long time because I thought, I don't look like anyone in porn, so I can't really relate to it. And so I remember that was my first thoughts of when I was young, watching porn. I've been working in HIV my whole adult life. I started at 19. At that time, I really didn't know anything about HIV. My first job was, hey, you want to hand out condoms at clubs? I'm like, sure. Through this job, I was able to get into 21 and over clubs because I would just show my work ID. And through there, that's when I started learning about HIV. I wasn't really sexually active at that point. So I think through my first job, I was an outreach worker, so I would go to clubs. But they will also send us to sex clubs. They will send us out to Elysian Park at the time, pretend that we were there for cruising, but really engage in conversations with guys that were there for sex and then give them condoms. You know, as an outreach worker, and then I started being a case manager. I became a supervisor for prevention for youth. I just fell in love with it. At that time, I was in college. I went years thinking I wanted to be a therapist. But then I realized I have my own problems. I don't want to listen to anyone else's issues. And then that's when I made the decision to go back for my master's. But this time I decided to go back for public health. And at that point, I wanted to work more in the macro level rather than micro individual. I went back for my master's in 2021. I continued working in HIV, this time more in the admin side, more grant-related funding, invoices, budgets. So I was still connected to the community. Being in the HIV field has taught me so much. This is all I know. I'm passionate about it, and I think because it's affected a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I know. And also I've seen how long we've come in HIV, whether it's in treatment or stigma or community advocacy. There's still a long way to go, even though now I feel like we're going backwards. I've been married for 11 years. We first got on PrEP, my husband and I. So we got married in 2014. You know, for a few years, we were just exclusive. We weren't having sex with anyone else. But it wasn't until 2018 that we decided to go to Europe. That's when we started talking about like, well, what if we start playing with others? And that's when I brought up the idea like, well, if we are gonna start playing with others, then I would rather get on PrEP. Initially, my husband was like, no, we don't need it. We can just use condoms. But then I was like, you know what? I don't know. Something, my gut is telling me to get on PrEP just because we never know what can happen. And so after thinking about it, he's like, okay, let's do it. That's when we first got on PrEP in 2018. And so when we're on vacation, we just a lot more free to experiment, a lot more careless to do whatever. And I just knew there was going to be a bunch of drinking, and it was also we were going for Bear Pride in Spain, and so I just knew there was going to be a lot of temptation, and I didn't want to limit ourselves. So that's why I told him, let's just get on PrEP just to be safe. There was just some kind of peace of mind, although we were still using condoms. I felt like PrEP was like that extra protection. We've been on PrEP ever since then. Even though there's times where we don't play with others, I don't mind taking a pill every day. Bear Pride is kind of like Pride, but for fat guys, for bears. And there's this one Pride in Spain, Sitges. Sorry, I shouldn't say fat guys. I should just say for guys that are more, I guess the average Joes go to this Pride, but it is a lot more bigger guys. I just feel more connected to the bear community because it's less, I don't want to say less judgmental because, there's cliques everywhere, but I just feel it's more welcoming body types. You see from a very thin guy to a very big guy. I just feel more connected to that community. What does my sex life look like post-PrEP? I feel more, I don't know if the word is confident in myself to experiment and explore. I know PrEP only protects us from HIV, but I feel like, being in this field, my fear was always contracting HIV. And I started in this field at a very young age before I was sexually active, that it was always a fear in the back of my mind. Even when I first came out, my dad said, just don't get AIDS. I feel like when you're gay, you're automatically put into that box, whether you're sexually active or not. Pre-PrEP, I was always worried about condoms. That was one of the reasons why I didn't bottom as much, because there was always that fear in my head. Post-PrEP allowed me to explore more of that side and be more free to experiment with other situations that are around. I think what PrEP opened up for me was just my more kinkier side. And I don't know, I think with PrEP, there's just always that thought of like I'm being more protected. It allows me to experiment more, be more raw, having more sex without condoms. It also allows me to bring up the conversation with my sexual partners as well. Are you on PrEP? Are you not? And that's a conversation that we didn't have before. It was always just like condoms. Being on PrEP allowed us to have that conversation. At the beginning, there's a negative connotation about being on PrEP because for the longest time, it's like, oh, you're on PrEP, you're a whore. Why are you slut shaming someone for being on PrEP? For my advocacy, it's like, don't look at PrEP as being, oh, you're on PrEP, you can go fuck around now, which nothing wrong with it. But you're being protected, you're protecting yourself. You're watching out for your health. Like, you're not relying on someone else to take care of you. I'm gonna do what I can to protect myself. I think with my kinkiness and fetishes, I guess you can say, so I do, I've never talked about this, but I guess a fetish I do have is I like feet. There's three things that I look for when I meet someone is A, their smile, B, I don't know why, I have a thing for elbows. Like if you have ashy elbows, it's a turn off for me. And then feet. I like men who take care of their feet. You know, there's this one time where we met this guy, he was so handsome, but the moment I looked at his feet, they were all crusty, and that was a buzzkill for me. It was an automatic, nope, I can't do it. For kinky, I do like public sex. I like being watched. So when we do go to these events, there are times where me and my husband would play and then guys would just watch. I don't know, I guess the arousal or the thought of someone getting off to me, but not necessarily touching me, it's like putting on a show. There's this a resort in Palm Springs, and it's strictly for men. At this resort, you can be naked, and they do have different play areas, and they have a maze, and so you can go there. And the reason why I like this place is because if that's not your thing, then you can just stay by the pool, and there's plenty of other things to do. If you do want to go and play, you can go to the back and play. And so that's what I do enjoy. I enjoy putting on a show. I tell my husband, let's go over there and like just give them a show, and the guys just watch. So do I have a history of STIs? At one point I thought I had contracted syphilis, but when I was younger I did shave my butt, something I had never done before. And of course, you know, I got ingrowns, but I didn't know they were ingrowns, so I thought, oh my, I broke out on a little rash. Like, oh my God, I contracted syphilis, I have an STD, I'm gonna go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, he checked me, and he's like, did you shave by any chance? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you don't have an STD, you have ingrown hairs. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. But I have had chlamydia. And again, I feel comfortable talking about this because I feel like a lot of times people are ashamed for getting STDs. And I feel like we should talk about this because it's real and people do contract this. And I would rather talk about it because that way I can either refer someone or let them know like, hey, there's treatment for this. And so yes, because we have been playing without condoms, of course there's a higher risk of us contracting STDs. And so both my husband and I, you know, we have contracted chlamydia, but then again, we get treatment and we take care of the situation. Have I used DoxyPEP? I have. So we get PrEP through QCare. So with this program, they mail us the kit. So at home, I do the finger prick, I do the urine, the throat sample, and the rectal sample. And ever since Doxy came up, now they offer us DoxyPEP. So even now, after every event that we do, or whenever we play with others, we automatically take Doxy after. So the kit is sent to me every 3 months. There's an app and it says time for your assessment. And so in the assessment it asks me, have you been taking PrEP as prescribed? Yes. Are you still practicing sex with others? Yes. Every 3 months I get tested with the finger prick, rectal, and throat. Have I ever considered injectable PrEP? No, I never considered it. Only because I know with injectable PrEP, now correct me if I'm wrong, you have to go to the doctor every 2 months. I never had an issue taking my daily pill. Honestly, I don't think I've had any challenges staying on PrEP. I know there's a lot of people that are had difficulty swallowing pills. For me, that's never been the issue for me. And then for me, I have the pill box. So that helps me stay on track. I always take it in the morning. as soon as I wake up. So I take 3. I take zinc, PrEP, and a multivitamin. For me, it's always been easy. I just go in my pill box and I take it. So I've never really had any issues as far as taking PrEP. I never had a symptom taking PrEP. However, I did get some when I took Doxy. So when I took Doxy, for some reason I get nauseous. So I have to make sure I eat first and then I take my Doxy. We are in a open relationship, but our rule is that we only play together. And so that's our rule. I know there's couples that, they do their own thing. When my husband and I first decided to open up our relationship, we did talk about it. We're like, okay, how are we gonna do this? Are you gonna want to do your own thing and I do my thing? Or do we only play together? And so our rule was we're only gonna play together. At first, I thought there was gonna be some jealousy in there. But then once we tried it the first time, I was like, wow, I really like this. I learned this word compersion as far as seeing my husband get pleasure from someone else that's not me. It gets me, I guess it turns me on, or I like the fact that he's getting pleasure from someone that's not me. And I was able to separate that from it doesn't mean he doesn't love me. It just means that he's getting pleasure from someone else and I'm happy for him. And then he told me he feels the same way. At the moment, in current time, we are open and we have started dating someone. So I guess you can say we're a throuple. With that, we did stop playing with others just so that we can focus on our new phase in our relationship as a throuple. So with our new partner, how does the conversation go about PrEP? We were honest and we said, hey, we're on PrEP. He's not on PrEP. Where he's from, it's not as easy to access PrEP. He does live in Colombia. And I know it's a long distance relationship, but we are seeing him soon. It's not as easy over there to get PrEP. He is an avid user of condoms, but even that, whenever we do see him, we just saw him in Ciudad Mexico for Pride. 3 of us got tested. He did as well, just so that, when we do see him, we don't use condoms. But the conversation did come up for sure about PrEP. So he knows we're on PrEP. And we told him, even though we're not playing with others, we're not restricting him from playing with others because it is a long distance relationship. So we did tell him us taking PrEP is also taking care of us as well. He actually appreciated that we were able to talk openly about that. He did mention that with his previous relationships, it wasn't as easy to talk about sex or openness about anything. And I think because I have been in this field, I do feel more comfortable talking about sex and bringing up uncomfortable conversations. And so for us, it wasn't difficult to bring it up. Actually, the first time I got on PrEP, my husband and I had the same doctor. So the first time we went and we asked the doctor, hey, we want to get on PrEP. He wasn't too familiar about PrEP, which was very interesting to me because you're a medical doctor. So me being in the field, I came prepared. I had all these pamphlets and, about PrEP. And I remember his first question was, why do you need PrEP if you're married? And so that's when it's well, first of all, it's none of your business. I go, but second, we're protecting ourselves. Me and my husband want to play with others, and this is one way we're going to protect ourselves. But it was the first time that I encounter not pushback, but just kind of side-eyed by a medical doctor, why do you need PrEP? You're married. And it's okay, straight people don't cheat on their spouses? Come on. What do I wish the healthcare system did differently? I wish they were more educated. Of course, me being in the field, now I know that not every medical doctor is educated on PrEP. Not many of them are open to having the conversation with whether it be gay males or just bisexual people in general. One thing I always didn't like was that PrEP wasn't really pushed on women. And I think there's a lot of situations whether it's in our culture or whatever, that there's a lot of men that are on the down low because our culture, our society pushes that not to be gay. I think I wish what the medical field did was have more open, honest conversation and really educating providers when they're in medical school about PrEP. So if someone is thinking about PrEP, do your own research, read up on it, but also try to look for someone to talk to about PrEP. My advice for anyone thinking about PrEP is really do your research, but also get online. There's chat rooms for all this that you can talk to people about. So I started HIV work in 2000. I remember seeing patients and even coworkers and friends taking a cocktail of medications for HIV. And at that time, those medications weren't easy on the body. A lot of them would have diarrhea while we're at work. When I first started this field, it was very rare to see someone undetectable. And I remember too, back in the day, they wouldn't put people on HIV meds right away. They would wait until their CD4 count will drop. Now, what gives me hope is that they do put people on medication who are HIV right away, and there is more education about PrEP. With that being said, though, now I feel like we are going a little backwards with this new administration in regards to HIV and PrEP, because they still consider it a gay disease, even though last year the majority of the cases were not gay men. I have hope that people are getting more educated, but at the same time, I feel like there's a lot more pushback now with this new administration, and the right wing is very conservative. I wish we talked more about sex, and not in a way where it's like fetishized, more in a real way. I have to say, I did this with my mom. She's the first person that I came out of the closet. I was 17 at that time. When she asked me if I was gay, I said, yeah. And she's like, I kind of knew already. But then the first question she asked me, she's like, mijo, ¿te puedo preguntar algo? And I said, sure. And she's like, ¿y no te duele? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I wasn't sexually active at that point. My response was, pues trátele usted y dígame. And I know at that point, it was funny, but this allowed my mom and I to have serious conversations about sex. And to the point where I even asked her, have you ever gotten tested for HIV, Mom? And she's like, why? I've only been with your dad. And I said, yeah, but do you know if my dad has only been with you? And it wasn't of me accusing my dad, it's just being in the field, I already knew how many men were on the down low. And I think when I asked her that, she kind of paused and thought whoa, yeah, you're right, I don't know. And so I took my mom to get an HIV test. I never took my dad because he wasn't open like that to go get tested, but I think it allowed my mom to think more outside the box. So that's when I started educating her about it, and then she became an advocate for, getting tested and all that. What I wish our community would do more is have serious conversations, and also just how fluid sexuality is, and not limit yourself. Even within the gay community, there's still so many boxes. There's times where I would tell friends, oh, I'm bi or pan, and it's like, shut up, no you're not, you're strictly dickly. And it's like, okay, but I don't limit myself. And so I feel like I wish there's more conversations about how fluid sexuality can be. The reason why I identify as pansexual is, for me, is if you're cute, you're cute. And if the chemistry is there, whether if you're female or male or trans, if we get along great, then let's have sex. I've been with males, I've been with females, and I've been with trans individuals. All those experiences have been wonderful. That's how I identify as pansexual, that I don't limit myself because I have to be with a male. The first time my husband and I had sex with a trans man, I was nervous because I felt like there was more pressure for me to perform. And I hadn't been with a woman in a while at that point. And so even though this is a trans man, biologically, his body did have a vagina. Okay, how are you gonna do this? It's been a while. But then I would see him and he looked like a male. And he identified as a male, and I saw him as a male. But then when we did it, it blew my mind. I'm like, wow. And also too, because the connection and the chemistry was there. But the first time that we did have sex with a trans man, it was very educational, I gotta say, because he would tell me okay, don't do it like this, do it this way. Because at that point, all I knew was from porn. And so of course, porn takes it to the next level, and that's not reality. He really taught us on how to please him. It was a wonderful experience, and I think that allowed us to how to ask questions about front hole, or some say my cock, or some say pussy, but not everyone likes that. And so we were educated on how to properly ask a trans man about their private parts. Some still say pussy, some say front hole or boy pussy or whatever. And so I don't know, I think I'm the type of person that I'm always blunt, and so I like to ask first, like, hey, what do you prefer calling this? You know? I just think people should have an open mind when it comes to sex. Sexuality is so fluid, and I think a lot of times people place themselves in a box. Also, don't be so judgmental when other people experiment. I recommend PrEP to anyone. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, bi, women, female. If you're having sex, I educate them on PrEP.
This season, we talked more than just protection. We got into identity, intimacy, fetishes, and the real ways PrEP shows up in our daily lives. Because sexual health isn't just about prevention. It's about empowerment, connection, and owning your desires. Thank you for listening, for leaning in, and for daring to have these conversations with us. Season 8 was brought to you by the Los Angeles Family AIDS Network in collaboration with Reach LA. Be safe, stay sexy, and keep talking.